it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is part of the Autoimmune Awareness Hop that was put together by Tara O'Brien from Mayhem Crafty Cards. So thank you, Tara, for doing this and raising awareness for autoimmune illnesses. This is the second year that we've done this hop and I'm honored to be part of it. So for my card, I chose to represent diabetes. I unfortunately have a lot of people in my life that I love that have diabetes, both type 1 and type 2. So in honor of all of them, I decided to make the card using the color blue, which is the diabetes ribbon. The diabetes ribbon can be blue or blue and gray. So I chose to make this mainly blue. So I'll talk a little bit about diabetes, what it is, and some of the common symptoms in a little bit, but we'll talk about the card first. So I am stamping down this image from MFT from the Unicorns and Glitter stamp set onto a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock that measures 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then I'm going to stamp it onto some copy paper because we are going to create a mask for this. I'm going to cut around the image and then I'm going to fussy cut it out. One of the things that I have learned with doing some fussy cutting lately is to move the paper and not the scissors. Now, I should say I've learned it. I've known this for a while, but I finally learned my lesson when I actually started paying attention and doing it this way. I was moving the scissors instead of moving the paper because I thought that I knew better than everyone else that said that you should move just the paper. And lo and behold, it's so much easier. So my stubbornness was causing me to have issues with fussy cutting before. So super easy. If you're having trouble with it, definitely move the paper and not the scissors. So now I'm just taking my Zig 2A glue pen and applying a little bit of glue to the back of that. This is a really old glue pen, so the glue is already white, but I am putting it to the side for a little bit just to let it dry. And then once it is dry and repositionable, I will place it over the image because we are going to stencil over this. And once I remove the mask, the stencil will go right around the image, but the image will be clean underneath. So one of my favorite things is that masked reveal. So we'll see that in a minute. These two stencils are from Lawn Fawn. It's a set of 2 called Confetti. And while they are not exactly layering stamps, you can use them together. They don't overlap each other. So like the layering stencils and stamp sets do. And I did say stamps, but I meant stencils. Sorry, guys. I picked 2 colors of Distress Oxide to go use on the stencils. The first one is Broken China, and then we are also going to use Salty Ocean. Now you can see I'm moving the magnets to butt up against where that stencil is because when we do the second stencil, I'm going to place those right up against where the magnets are and then put them down. This way, none of the shapes overlapped. You could do that if you want. You could have them overlap, but I didn't want to. I wanted to use them as they were intended. So that nothing would overlap, I just lined those magnets up. Super easy to do. These are super easy. Even if you didn't line the magnets up, these are pretty easy to put together. So you see I was using Salty Ocean, and now I'm going to take this off and I'm going to reveal the mask. I'm going to take the mask off. I'm using my craft pick just because I have dark colored nail polish on and I didn't want to leave any streaks on the paper. And once the mask comes off, ta-da, I love this. I love that reveal. I love how nice and clean and crisp the image looks against that stenciled background. I am going to now color in the image with a bunch of Copic markers. I used a bunch of B and BG markers and also some V. I brought in a little bit of purple, which I know is not the diabetes awareness, but I do believe it's part of the rheumatoid one. I think the rheumatoid one was blue and purple, and because I did that one last year, and my brother and my aunt both have rheumatoid arthritis, but I really wanted to highlight diabetes this year. So while you're watching me color, I am going to talk about diabetes, what it is, and some of the symptoms. So just from some of the research that I've done, diabetes is a disease that occurs when your blood glucose, which is also called blood sugar, is too high. Blood glucose is your main source of energy and comes from the food that you eat. And insulin, which is made by the pancreas, helps glucose from food get into your cells to be used for energy. Sometimes your body doesn't make enough or any insulin, or doesn't use the insulin that it does make well. So the glucose then stays in your blood and doesn't reach your cells. Over time, having too much glucose in your blood can cause health problems. And unfortunately, there's no cure for diabetes, but there are some things that you can do to help manage it. So medications such as insulin for type 1 or medicines like metformin for type 2 can control your blood sugars. So type 1 and type 2 are different. Type 2 is mainly food, and type 1 is where you do shots of insulin. There are 3 types of diabetes: type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes. One of the things that I did not know about gestational diabetes is that if you have that, you are more likely to become a type 2 diabetic later on in life. So that was something interesting that I did not know before I started doing a little bit of research for this card. Now that we know a little bit about diabetes, what are some of the early signs and symptoms? Those can include frequent urination, increased thirst, fatigue, blurred vision, increased hunger, unexplained weight loss or weight gain, slow healing cuts and wounds, and tingling or numbness in the hands and feet. You don't have to have all of these signs and symptoms, obviously, to be a diabetic, but these are some of the most common ones. Now, there are autoimmune illnesses that are fairly difficult to diagnose. This one, fortunately, is pretty easy to diagnose. By seeing your doctor and talking to them about your symptoms, they can do some tests and see what your blood sugar levels are and see what's going on with you and if you are pre-diabetic or an actual diabetic. I'll leave some links to some really good websites in the description box below so that you can go ahead and check out the websites if you're interested in learning more about diabetes. But I just wanted to bring a couple of facts to the video and let you guys know a little bit more about what the signs and symptoms of diabetes are. Now we'll get back to the coloring in the card because I left this in so that I could talk about diabetes, but I also wanted to talk about the coloring. Like I said before, I did choose blue because of diabetes, so the markers that I used are B02, B04, B10, B12. I think I used B00. I used some BG colors, BG 13, 15, and 23. V, I used V02, V04, V06. I believe I even used V14 in there. So I do show some of the caps and some of the sides of the markers, but I just picked out the blues that I thought would blend nicely together and look good together. You noticed before when I was using the darkest colors, I hold the marker like a pen straight up and down so that just the very tip of that marker is touching the paper. I want to get just a teeny tiny bit of that, what Courtney Kruber likes to call scary dark, down, and then work back to the lightest colors and then add a little bit more of those medium colors back in. So I'll do darkest color, medium colors, light color, and then add back in the mediums just kind of to blend them out, and sometimes even the lightest one to blend it back out. So I'm just trying to leave a highlight kind of on the middle of all of her hair pieces and switching back and forth between the purple and the blue, just filling in all of those areas, again leaving that little bit of that white highlight in her hair, or like the lightest color highlight in there. I did color in her dress 2 different colors. I did the BG colors for the top of her dress and the B markers for the bottom. Added in that little bit of purple again because I thought it just needed a little bit of pop of color. I thought there was a little bit too much blue if I just used blue for everything. So you can see that I've colored the hair in, and I'm just going back in, adding a little bit more touches to the hair, and then we're going to get ready to move on to her skin tone. So I used some E markers for her skin tone, and I believe it was E00 and E02 that I used when I colored her skin tones in. Went in first with some E00, laid down a little bit of that color, put the E0 down in the parts that would be the highlights, like kind of where her hair is overlapping her face. That would be the darkest part. So just kind of went in and mapped that out, and then just used the E00 to blend the rest of those colors together. One thing to note is you want to make sure that your ink is very, very dry when you use light colors. When you're using these like 00 and 02, the very, very light colors, the E's, the B's, anything like that. Yep, the Y's, anything that's very, very light, because it's very easy to pick up that ink, the lines on the ink, and drag it across your image. I've ruined many of images by being impatient and not heat setting it or waiting for it to dry. I believe that was E20 that I did with the ears, and then I'm doing, or E30 maybe, and then R20, I'm adding a little bit of that to her cheeks, and then adding a little bit of that to the unicorn ears. I thought that it looked really nice to have a peachish shade and then a pink shade in the ear, kind of have it an ombre look to it. I'm using B, I believe it's 10 and 12 to go, or I'm sorry, 10 and 12 and it might be 00 to go ahead and color in these flowers. There's actually 4 that I'm using here. So B14, B12, B4 maybe, and B00, going back in and just adding those colors in there. Again, it doesn't really matter the colors. It's just kind of, I just randomly picked colors that I thought would look good with this and that match those colors in the background, swatch them out a little bit. This one is B60. It's a bluish gray purple, I think. And I just wanted to add a little bit to the unicorn horn. I didn't want it to be white. And I'm going in with a white gel pen, adding dots to her cheeks. I do a collection of 3 dots, adding the dot to the center of her eyes, and then using this brush marker to add 3 eyelashes to each of her eyes. Going back in with a white gel pen and adding highlights to her hair. I don't usually do this. This was a little bit different for me, but I do like the way that it came out. Trying to do a little bit more stepped up designs now, not just coloring things in, but adding some highlights. I went back in and added the middles of the flower. So I found this piece of scrap cardstock lying around, and it was perfect to go behind it, but it was the wrong orientation. So I chose a 4 and I believe this is, oh, I'm sorry, this is 5 by 6.5 black card base, glued down that background, and then glued the main panel the other way. And I'm just stamping this sentiment in that same MFT extreme black ink, and it says, "You were created to be you," on there, and I thought that was absolutely perfect for this. When I was finished with that, I decided that I needed a little bit of purple in the background because we added the purple on her, but we needed a little thing to tie it in. So I picked Villainous Potion and took 2 of the star stamps from the unicorns and glitter, and I was going around and filling in some of the empty areas in the pattern from the stencil with these. But I wanted to make it look like pattern paper, so I also wanted it to go off the edge. So I took that little scrap of paper just to protect the love paper that's behind that. And once I stamp it a couple of times, that is the background for the card. That's the entire card. So I am so happy that you guys were able to join us. I hope that you are loving this hop. I can't wait to see what everyone has made. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to leave them down below. Hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys again real soon for another video.